Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show, the podcast where personal injury legal expertise meets real-world advice to empower and protect you. Join us as we delve into the critical aspects of personal injury cases, break down legal jargon into actionable insights, and share essential safety tips to help you navigate life's unexpected moments. And now, here are your hosts, Spencer Bettis and Ben Musgrove.
All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Bettis Musgrove Show. As always, I'm Ben Musgrove. This is my law partner, Spencer Bettis. We have a boutique law firm in Cumming, Georgia that specializes in personal injury. We created this podcast about 2 months ago to kind of help shed some light on who we are and what we do for a living, do a little deeper dive into what personal injury law actually is, and hopefully help some people before, during, and after an injury-involved event. So, partner, as always, great to be with you this morning. Beautiful Friday morning. I've got to admit, this is probably my least productive week of the year just because I am an absolute Masters tournament junkie in anything Augusta National. I've got to watch it. So I apologize. Every time you walk by my office, I've been on the computer streaming something that I shouldn't have been. But I see you're wearing the new Masters swag today, so I think you probably get it.
Oh, yeah, I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Who do you like this week to put on the green jacket?
I'm a big Scotty Scheffler fan. I'd like to see him do it.
Yeah.
I would love to see Ricky Fowler win it one year, but I don't know if that's this year.
Nope, I'm a Ricky fan as well. I was big on Xandra coming in this week. A little rough for him yesterday. Hopefully he pulls it back together. But looking at Max Homa, if Max could pull it off, that would be fantastic too.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
I'd like that. But anyway, that's enough of that. Let's get rolling so I can get back to screaming golf here in a minute. Last week we talked about what it was to be an advocate and how as personal injury lawyers we are advocates before we really are anything else. I loved our conversation. Excuse me. I think it really painted a great picture of what we do for a living and really what somebody should be looking for when they're shopping for an attorney after an accident.
Yeah, that was my favorite one so far. I really loved that the advocate one we did. Put a lot of time and effort into that one. We got a lot of good feedback about the whole thing, but we pulled a short from it about AI and how law firms are using that. And I've had a lot of people reach out to me about that specific one. Maybe a little bit of shock that law firms are using that and getting into the letting AI take over. But got a lot of good feedback on that. And then today, I really, after going through that version of that podcast, I'd really like to dig into advocacy a little bit more. It's a very important topic.
Well, as luck would have it, the podcast God's shone a little light on us this week. We had several things that came up that required us to sort of practice what we preached last week and be advocates and sort of, I'll get into the specifics about what happened. But what I really saw from the issues that came up this week is that an advocate can really only be as good as the person that they're advocating for. And I think that that's really important. I think people need to understand that. They come to us with their problems, certainly more than willing to help them with the problems, try to get them some compensation for what they're going through, for their medical bills, that type of thing. But they've got to help us get there. They've got to give us the information we need to get there. So I thought we'd call this episode Help Us, Help You. I don't know what you think about that.
I love it. I think we'd take it a bit further, from military days and football days. There was a popular saying that a good defense is a solid offense. I do believe that is true. And in our world, though, I think it's a little bit of a reverse, that a good offense is a solid defense.
Yeah. No, I think you're right. When you look at it from that perspective, we have to be able to anticipate what the defense is going to put in front of us.
Right.
We've got to be able to address that beforehand or figure out some way to sort of spin it so that we can go on the offensive and have that to our advantage.
Yeah, we definitely got to be able to anticipate what insurance companies, what defense counsel are going to do, and what tactics they may use to devalue the claim. And only way we can do that is if we have, like you said, everything we need. We have all the information that we can to, all the tools in our toolbox.
Yeah, and a lot of that, we can go get it. We can get police reports. We can get surveillance videos. We can get that type of thing. But the vast majority of the information we need to be able to prepare that defense and go on the offensive it comes from our client. Every single time we meet with a new client, we've got a fairly intense intake process where we go through and just ask tons and tons of questions. And a lot of those questions can get pretty uncomfortable. I explained to the client when we're meeting with them that it's things that we need to know. I need to know everything. I need to know the good. I need to know the bad. I need to know the ugly. I need to know if you've had 4 DUIs in the past 2 years. I need to know if when you were 18, you got caught trafficking narcotics. That's important. I need to know if at the time of this car wreck, if you were doing something illegal, God forbid, speeding, texting, drinking, you name it. It may not be great, but if I know about it, I can prepare for it. I can figure out which direction we're going to go with it. The situation may not be ideal, and it may devalue the claim. There's no doubt there are certain things that happen during an accident or in someone's past that could potentially devalue a claim. I mean, we were recently able to settle a claim for a client of ours, and I won't say her name. She had a good accident, clear liability. She had good treatment, good injuries. The medical bills were fairly high, and just from the 30,000-foot view looking at it, looked like a great claim. But the client had some issues. She had some things in her past that weren't great. Her personality wasn't going to make her a good witness. She was going to be a little bit abrasive, maybe offensive. I think every time she got quote-unquote cornered or asked difficult questions, she didn't respond well. And I got nervous that if we put her in front of 12 strangers, they're not going to like her. Yeah. If insurance counsel just can even taste a little bit of that blood in the water, they're going to jump on it and make her look foolish. And so I didn't think that she needed to push forward. And when the insurance company presented us with an offer that I thought was suitable, I encouraged her to take it, and she did. And so we were able to get it done. And then sometimes you get a client or you get some facts that could end the case altogether before it even gets started. Last week, we got a call from a gentleman wanted us to represent him, said that he had been in a car wreck and he had been hit head on. And, as he's telling us about the facts of what happened, I kind of got suspicious, and I'm thinking, no, it sounds like this guy might have been at fault. He had mentioned that they were trying to accuse him of being drunk while, when the accident happened, but he wasn't drunk. Called you, got you to pull up the police report before we ever brought this guy in for a formal interview, and sure enough, had a car wreck, charged with a DUI. We dodged a bullet there before we got involved, and it got worse. But we need to know these things so that we can prepare our response. There is absolutely nothing worse than being blindsided by opposing counsel in a deposition or in a trial with some information that was easily obtainable from your client. They just didn't give it to you. One of them, you've heard me say this 1,000 times to people, but one of my prime examples of that is a case that I had, 5 or 6 years ago. It was referred to me by another plaintiff's attorney. He was unsuccessful in pre-litigation negotiations, so he passed it over to me to file suit. Just looking at the case, it was an okay case. It wasn't great. This person had fallen in a grocery store when she stopped by one evening to get some dinner, some fried chicken. Actually, she was in the deli area, and while she was going through the deli area, or this is what she told me, she slipped and fell, cracked her head on the floor, messed up her back. She had good treatment. She had good injuries. And, just from looking at it on the outset and everything she had told me, I was like, okay, we can get her some money, pay for the medical bills, put a little bit of money in her pocket for what she's going through. So we did. We took the case, we filed suit, and we started going through the motions. I'd sent out a request for the surveillance video. A lot of people want to get those videos and need to understand that before you file a lawsuit, a potential defendant, whether it's a person or a business, doesn't have an obligation to provide that video. But once you file suit, there is that obligation. They have to give you evidence that might lead to the discovery of admissible evidence. So we sent out that request. Opposing counsel called me and said, yeah, we'll track it down. We'll get it to you. I'd like to go ahead and take your client's deposition. I said, okay. So when I'm preparing a client for a deposition, it's a fairly involved process. Bring them in, sit down with them, kind of go over everything, the X, Y's, and Z's, the whole claim, everything about them, everything about the claim. And I asked him right there, is there anything that you haven't told me that I need to know? I don't care if it's bad. I don't want to be surprised. Anything. This client tells me no. Nothing that she could think of. Excuse me. So we get into the deposition. As soon as we sit down in the deposition, most defense attorneys kind of start with, mundane questions. What's your name? Where are you from? Where'd you go to high school? That kind of thing. Not this attorney. First question out of his mouth was, client, when's the last time you smoked marijuana? And I was like, well, that's a weird question. But before I could even object or do anything, my client just immediately says, yesterday. And I was like, okay. And then he follows up with, well, how many times a day do you smoke marijuana? Again, gut reaction from the client. She just immediately goes 4 or 5 times a day. And I was like, okay, I'm starting to get a little nauseous. This isn't going well. Where is he headed? And he says, okay, well, did you smoke marijuana before this fall happened in this grocery store? She says, definitively, no, I did not. He then turns on a screen and presses play, and there's a video there of this woman standing in line at the deli counter. Looks like my client. He says, is this you? She says, yes, that's me standing in line. And yet, ordinarily, standing in line at a deli counter, not a big deal, except she looked like she was on a deep-sea fishing charter boat, just swaying back and forth. Couldn't keep her balance, like it was clear something was going on, and then just spontaneously falls over and hits her head on the ground. And he stops the video, and we stopped the deposition, and we went out in the hallway. I feel like an absolute idiot. I'll take that back. Before we do that, he says, client, would it surprise you that I've got 2 people who will testify that they saw you smoking marijuana in the parking lot before you came into the store? And she just goes completely silent, staring at the floor. And he said, furthermore, the lady standing in front of you in that line says that you reeked of marijuana before this happened. Again, my client's just staring at the floor. That's when we took a break. And we went out in the hallway, and he goes, look, Ben, like, there's nothing here. Turns out there was some grease or some sort of substance on the floor. Wasn't clear if my client actually stepped in it. He goes, you guys need to dismiss this case. And I said, yeah, I think so. But that was something that I could have prepared for. Smoke marijuana, do what you do. You're a grown person, whatever. It's illegal, but you're grown. I can handle it. But tell me about it so we can prepare for it. We could have got that video beforehand, and if I'd have seen that video, we could have prevented filing that lawsuit. Just things that I need to know before we get going. Essentially, not having that, not being able to prepare for the defense, eliminated my ability to go on the offensive.
Yeah. Every time you tell that story, that blows my mind. But I'm glad you're able to get it dismissed before it went too far, and that you had a decent lawyer on the other side, who allowed you to handle it with some dignity, and didn't use any other nasty tactics, I'll say. But giving your lawyer all the information is definitely important, so they can plan for those moments. Hopefully those moments don't happen a whole lot, but that they can put forward a valid offense on your case. But I'll ask you this: have you ever seen it where the defense doesn't have all the information, and how does that affect your strategy in a case?
Yeah, it's funny you should ask, Spence. I actually have, and I've had here recently. Yeah. So as you know, we've been dealing with it over the past couple of weeks. We'd scheduled some depositions for this, or a deposition for a defendant in a case. I'm not going to be specific here because this case is still active, and I'm not trying to give up, show our hand on this one. Right. There's some things that are come out of it, but we filed this lawsuit, and in every case when we file a lawsuit, obviously the defendant has to answer our lawsuit, and then we go into this period that I talked about a minute ago called discovery, where we send out written questions first, interrogatories, request to admit, or what they're called, and they get 30 days to answer. We'll send out requests for documents like the videos and medical records and stuff, and they turn around and send the same thing to us, written questions, requests for production. So we answer those within 30 days. Discovery normally lasts about 6 months. Once you're done with the written portion, you move into the oral portion of discovery, and that's when you take depositions of people. And just like this case here, we filed it, we got the answer, we sent the discovery. They sent back responses within 30 days. Now in Georgia, you're allowed to send up to 50 interrogatories. In this case, I'd only sent about 30. And what struck me as odd in this one is that out of the 30, roughly, that I sent, the majority of them did not have an actual response. It just said, defendant will supplement. And that, occasionally that happens. We don't always have the information that we need. Just responded to discovery on a case yesterday. The guy's still in treatment. So we don't have the information all the information that they need. We have to supplement that later when it comes in. Not uncommon. But in this case, nobody told me anybody needed to supplement. And what really struck me as odd is that the questions that they were saying they had to supplement were really easy questions to answer. Just, again, without going into it, things that anybody would know about themselves. Yeah. On the other hand, there were some harder questions in there that a person might not just know off of hand. and they answered those questions. So I was like, what's going on here? And it became very clear to me that the defendant, I didn't think, had answered these questions. Her attorney had answered them for her, and that's not okay. She's supposed to do this under oath and give me these responses. And so what we talked about last week, I could quickly feel my inner Matthew McConaughey and Jake Brigance going away and my Harvey Specter coming up. I got ticked off pretty quick, and I was switching over to aggressive attorney. And as I'm getting my outline ready for this deposition, I'm ready to come in just guns blazing and just burn the whole thing down. Fortunately, I took a break, came and talked to you about it, told you what I was going through, and you sort of brought McConaughey back out of me a little bit and put Harvey up. So good cop, bad cop there. You advised me to sort of take it easy, and I ultimately decided that I wouldn't come in guns blazing, that I would sort of approach this a little bit more laid back and just give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe she did answer these questions. Maybe she's just, she didn't know how to answer them fully, so they were buying some time. And sure enough, when I got in there, she tells me that she answered the questions. And it just became clear that her story is terrible. It doesn't make sense what she's trying to say, and I think her attorney probably panicked and just threw in the supplements. But regardless, in my opinion, they abused the discovery process. So we're going to put this in front of a judge and see what comes of it, because I think we're entitled to some relief there. But the deposition went well, and through her inability to answer these questions, she was tied up even more in the questions in the deposition and learned. I don't want to say she's lying. I don't know that she's lying, but she's certainly misremembering what happened. And I was able to catch her on that during the deposition. So I feel really good about the case coming out of it. But yeah, that's a situation where she didn't give her attorney the information that he needed to present her defense. And because she didn't, or because she gave him bad information, they weren't able to use that offensively at all either.
Yeah.
So that's one example. I say all that to say information is important. Whether someone is a claimant or a plaintiff, or whether they're a defendant in a case, they're at fault, give your attorneys and all your representatives all of the information that they need, not just some of it, all of it. Help us, help you, is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredible. I knew you were really conflicted about that one, but I'm glad it worked out. And I saw some very skillful work done by you on that deposition. So, but it's true. A good offense is as good as a defense. We're only as effective as the information we have that the clients provide to us. And if they don't, then it certainly can affect how we advocate for them. But I also think, it's important, and the moral of that story is telling the truth is important.
Yeah.
Whether it's good or bad. That's what our legal system is built on, is telling the truth. That's why you take an oath when you provide testimony, or swear to certain documents when you sign them. And a good attorney that knows what they're doing can usually tell when someone's lying, and can certainly flesh it out, especially if it's in let's say a deposition or a courtroom setting. You can get trapped.
Sure.
That's why it's always important to tell the truth. So don't get caught in that trap. Give the information to your attorney. Give them truthful information. Give them all the information. Don't withhold anything. And trust your attorney to do a good job, and to prepare the defense and deploy and utilize that information that you've given them to your benefit.
Certainly. Yeah, I think that's an excellent close on the whole thing. I think it's pretty clear when you talk to us, we don't care about your past. We don't care about what mistakes you may have made in the moment. We want to be advocates for you. We want to help you in a time of need when you've been injured. As always, if there's anything that we can do for you or any of your friends, family, loved ones, give us a call. Our new number is 470-839-2769. You can find us online at bettismusgrove.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Bettis Musgrove. And come see our new office. We just moved in last week, 202 Triple Gap Road. Happy to have you come by. We'll make you a cup of coffee and just chat about whatever. Until next time, you guys stay safe, stay healthy. God bless.